Hey friends, welcome to the Building Your Brands Toolkit and actually using it lunch and learn. Today we're going to talk about branding, but probably not in the way you may have been expecting. This isn't a logo class, it's not a Canva class, it's not even really a marketing class. It's actually a shocker, I know, a systems class disguised as a branding class. My goal today is to help you establish some foundational brand components and create a toolkit that helps give clarity and confidence so you can stop rebuilding the wheel and instead just throw a little color on it when you need some variety. By the end of the day, I want you to be able to do a few things. First, identify the foundational pieces of your brand, gather them in one place, and then have a plan for actually using them. Most business owners actually already have their brand pieces. The problem is that they're scattered, undocumented, a little inconsistent, and sometimes they only exist in your head. The issue with that is it makes it much more difficult to create consistently when you're strapped for time or mental bandwidth. The bonus of creating a brand toolkit is that it can be shared with collaborators like your social media manager, a marketing firm, or even your employees so you don't feel like you're constantly directing, correcting the content before leaving under your roof. So today we're working to fix that. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Angela. I own Angela Hoppe Collaborative. My mission is to help women in business build genuine connections and confidently share their stories through coaching, practical learning, and community support. Everything I teach comes back to one question. How do we make business ownership feel more sustainable? Not faster, not bigger, not louder, but just more sustainable. So today's workshop is a prime example of that. I want to start by saying something pretty important. Most business owners don't actually intentionally avoid branding. They've just been busy building an actual business. You've been serving clients, delivering services, managing schedules, learning new software. Maybe you're showing up at events, trying to keep everything moving. And somewhere along the way, you were like, oh, wait, I need a logo. And so you picked a logo. And then after that, you said, okay, I need some colors. Let me build a website. Let me get some pro photos. And while none of those things are wrong, in fact, those are all things really big companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, rooms full of staff, and hours in a boardroom developing and deliberating over. But for small businesses and organizations, they often happen at different stages of business, made by different versions of you. And at some point you look around and you start thinking, wow, this kind of feels a little disconnected. Why am I making the same decisions over and over again? How will I be able to keep this going? And that's usually that the moment that's the moment right there that the toolkit becomes valuable. When I talk about branding, I'm talking about what I call an ecosystem. Your brand is the collection of signals people use to recognize, remember, and experience your business. Think about people you instantly recognize. Sometimes it's not even their logo, it's their colors, or maybe it's their photography you notice. Maybe it's their language or their personality. Sometimes it can be things like their reputation or their values. Maybe it's their client experience. All of those things matter and they all work together. And that's why branding isn't just one thing. It's not just your logo, it's not just your colors, it's not just your experience. It's an ecosystem of experience that your audience has. This slide is kind of intentionally bigger than what we're covering today. It looks like a lot But the fact that I want to get across is that your brand is bigger than fonts and colors. It's bigger than logos. Things like your mission and vision, they matter. Your client experience matters. Your reputation matters. And the way that you present yourself in the community is going to be remembered. So all of those pieces are what influence people to experience your business. Today, what we're doing is we're narrowing our focus to a few foundational pieces that can help support the rest of that ecosystem. So think of this as building the framework before decorating the actual house, before putting the furniture in it and painting the outside and hanging up pictures. We're building the base, the framework. People typically want to skip ahead and they want to, again, get to decorating. That's the fun part. They want the colors, the logo, and the website. They want to start building their Canva templates so that they can be efficient. But before we do any of that, I want to talk about your brand's mission and vision. Because if your visual brand doesn't support that mission and vision, eventually you're going to find yourself redoing everything anyway. So the goal here is alignment. It's not decoration. So if you haven't laid the groundwork on your brand, that's where you're going to start. Let's talk about the difference in mission and vision. So your mission answers why your business exists today, who you help, how you help them, and why it matters. You don't have to overcomplicate this. This isn't like a corporate sit at the boardroom table exercise where you just throw around a whole bunch of stuff and you create this perfectly worded mission statement. It's simply creating clarity around what you're doing right now, today. If you can't articulate your mission, it's really hard to build a purposeful brand around it. And it's even harder for people to understand what you're doing here and why they want to buy into it. Your vision is a little different. Your vision is about where you're going, where you're heading in the future. It answers questions like what impact do you hope to have? What future are you helping to create? What are you building towards? Your mission is what guides today's decisions. Your vision is what help guides tomorrow's decisions. You need both, and they both need to be clear. Not pretty, not perfect, but just clear. Our instinct is to put a lot of words in our mission and vision statement, but we want to be concise and clear instead of extra wordy and decorated. This is where we start getting into the toolkit itself. And again, I want to be clear, this is not every single component of a brand. It's not an exhaustive list. This is simply where I recommend people start to achieve visual consistency because these are five pieces that I've found dramatically reduce confusion and decision fatigue when you're creating content for your brand. You're going to start with these five things: fonts, colors, logos, and photos. Then you're going to look at your brand messaging. While these are really simple components, they're not necessarily easily established. So you really want to think and consider all of the things that go into each of these components. So let's break it down. Font combinations. Fonts are what help create visual familiarity. That's a hard word to say. Visual familiarity. You don't need a ton of fonts. You don't need 50 fonts. You don't need 15 fonts. You just need a few intentional fonts that coordinate well together. The goal isn't finding the most beautiful font on Canva. The goal is finding fonts you can use repeatedly across multiple platforms. When people see your materials over time in different spaces, those repeated choices start to create recognition. And when you're super consistent, they can actually start to trigger action. For example, if I reserve my bold serif font to indicate a request for action like submit this form, your audience will begin to skim looking for that bold serif in order to look for direction. So what we're doing with font combinations is we're using it over time to create an indication for action or to help them fill in the space so that their brain doesn't have to make as many decisions. The same thing is going to be true for color. Could you use 20 colors, 100 colors, one color? Sure. But should you? Probably not. Because colors become useful when they're repeated and when they have purpose. And over time, people begin associating those colors with your business and potentially the action that you want them to take. We talked about this in the Collab Lab last week or the week before when we started talking about behaviors and how humans, just like animals, learn by association. And so when we can give that opportunity for association over and over and over again, that's when recognition happens. So recognition isn't created through a variety, it's actually created through consistent repetition. Here's the exciting thing about today. You probably already have a logo. So, way to go. Most businesses do, though. Most businesses have a logo. And in fact, that's one of the first things they start with. But fewer businesses know that they actually need numerous logos, they need numerous versions. And now I'm not telling you to go create a new logo or like go hire somebody to make a new logo, but I want to start identifying what already exists in your toolkit or somewhere around your toolkit, creating clarity around it, and then developing alternative options for ease of use later on. So think about things like which one is primary, which one's secondary, where should I be using each of them? These simple decisions are what's going to help you save time later on. So having different versions, like different colors or maybe different sizes, can help save you a big design headache later because you're not having to make those decisions in the moment when you've already made those important decisions. Something that I do want to call attention to is the value in having a variety of logos in length and width and height, but also in color variations and whether they have a background or not. So sometimes we're designing things that need to have a solid color logo. Maybe you're getting it printed on a shirt, and so you need it all in one color. When those things are already developed ahead of time, it makes it a lot easier, a lot more efficient, a lot less of a headache to get it done when we need it. This, I may be a little biased here, but photos are one of the most overlooked brand assets. People often think branding photos are just headshots or they're just pictures of your products, but photos are what help communicate things like personality, values, experience, and credibility. I always encourage businesses to identify a handful of anchor images. These are images that become strongly associated with your brand or business over time. These are the images that you dog ear for when you need it in a pinch. It's the things that people visualize when they think of you or your brand. Because again, this is one of the easiest ways to create a recognizable and reliable pattern over time. Having some anchor images that fit both the style, the messaging, and the vision that you're trying to portray. Brand messaging is honestly one of the biggest whoopsies when talking about inconsistent branding. I, in some form or fashion, can be guilty of it myself. So, messaging includes things like different phrases that you might repeat, beliefs that you teach, stories you tell, languages you use. For example, a lot of you already know a lot of my taglines or the words that I use very often. Things like, hey, friends, or yes. I even sign my emails with XOXO. That's part of my messaging. It's repeated over time, it becomes recognizable. When your messaging varies from your social media to your website to your email, it becomes confusing and muddy. Messaging matters because it's how people hear your brand, not just see it. And it's what rings in their ears when you're not on the screen. Now let's talk about how we put it all together and where we give it a home. I do want to reiterate that the toolkit is not your brand. The toolkit is just the reference guide for your brand. It's the place you keep decisions that you've already made. And I'll give you two examples of what your brand toolkit might look like. One is a Canva toolkit, and the other is a brand guide. Neither's right, neither's wrong. The best system is just one that you're actually going to use and reference and one that you can access easily. So, if neither of these is the best solution for you, then something like Google Docs can work just fine. The goal is to simply create a reference point so you can stop making the same decisions over and over and over again because, girl, you're fatigued. I want to go ahead and I'm going to pull up first the brand guide. And this is something that I'm happy to, if you're interested in it becoming a template of sorts, I'm happy to extend that to you. If you want to just drag and drop your stuff in there, that's fine. And then the second thing I'll pull up is the Canva brand toolkit. Some other ideas that I had, if you had a shared folder, or maybe you have a program that you can use as your resource hub to just kind of like have all of your brand assets in one spot. But the big thing again is that we're just creating an accessible, easily accessible reference point so that we can reference it over and over again and take that decision making out of what we have to do on our to-do list because we got too many things on our to-do list. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and pull up the, wait, am I muted? I think I was muted. Okay, I felt like y'all would have been like calling me or something if I was muted. Okay, must have been an old, okay, yeah. Oh, it must have been an old. Okay, okay. It must have been an old notification. All right. I was like, oh shoot, I just did the whole dang thing with the microphone on. It wouldn't be very far off. Okay, so first thing is the brand guide. So what I did is I actually made this on Canva and then I just exported it as a PDF. This is something that I actually have printed out. It's bound. It's like a nice little, I printed it at Office Depot kind of situation. One, I can use it in my brand photo shoots, which is really nice. So it adds just a little pop of, hey, this is a resource that I have. And this kind of like is an easy way to just give people an idea of like what my brand is if it appears in photo shoots or things like that. But I use that a lot when I'm referencing things while making resources for students. So this is something that I prefer because I don't have two screens. I can't like pull it up on one and then reference it on the other screen. So I like to just have it printed out. If you're a pen and paper kind of girl, then you might enjoy something like this. So basically what I have here is it's a just like a little booklet, and I go through and I list everything. So here's the overview, my mission and vision. These are my values. These are my messaging pillars and what they mean. Here's my personality, my voice and tone. And the idea is that anybody could pick this up and they could start off where I left off, or they can pick up where I left off. So this is a really good resource if you're working with someone doing your social media or your marketing, or maybe they're rebuilding stuff for you, or they're just creating content, or maybe you just need like a one-off thing. And this is a really good, just easy, it's already made. I can send it off, and they get an idea. I also have in here things like post templates. Like this is kind of like what I post. This is what my graphics look like. These are this is my color palette, these are my fonts, all the things. And again, I really, really like this because it gives me the opportunity to print it out. I have it in front of me and it's easy to reference. Alternative, which I've done, the branding toolkit lunch and learn previously, was all about setting it up in Canva. But I took a step back and realized there was a need for branding before the point of getting to Canva. So that's what this Lunch and Learn focuses on. But I do want to show you the brand toolkit in Canva because it is a really, really good tool. So if you go to canva.com, you can set this up even if you have the free version. There just will be some options that aren't available to you. So if you go to the little brand tab over here, you're able to have multiple brands. So if I wanted, or I was managing multiple brands, I could create new brand toolkits for each brand. And then in there, I'm able to see things like my guidelines, which I don't have filled out because admittedly that is in my head. That is in my head. It's actually in my brand guide, but I didn't copy and paste it into my brand toolkit because I'm the one that's creating my brand content. So if I was sharing my profile with a social media manager or something like that, I might would have my guidelines set in there. You can also create brand templates, which a good example of that is the presentation that I'm doing today is a Canva slideshow that I just have as a template, and I'm able to drag and drop and create content in a really quick way. And all of it is set up for my brand. It's ready to go. You have those all under one tab. Then I'm able to add additional folders. So one folder that I did is I said, hey, like instead of having all my photos under this photo tab, which makes it a lot easier to access the actual photo than having to go to, hold on, let me go into so if this was the project I was in, I could click brand and go to the images that I've identified as branding images, as opposed to going to this upload tab, which could be muddied with a bunch of just different stuff that I've used to create. So this brand tab is a really good option if you're looking for a mobile way to organize your brand assets to be able to easily utilize them when you need them. Because again, the goal here is to create a system that you will actually use. Now, if all of your brand assets are scattered, it makes it harder to implement that system. So that's what we're doing here today. So again, if Canva is not where you design, then it may not make sense to have your toolkit in Canva, but it is a really good option for those of you who do use Canva as a design, or you just need like a free way to put it in there, or to have it available to you. Now, again, if you're only using the free version, you're not going to have full access as if you were using the paid version like I am. So in the paid version, I can add things like my color scheme. I can add things like my font, which I can do in the free version. But in the paid version, I can add things like photos. I can upload photos, and these are all only brand photos. I can upload things like graphics. I can put icons in that I use very often. I can go ahead and set like what my charts are gonna default to. All of those things are just really handy to do in the Canva brand toolkit. So what happens next? Once you have a toolkit, a few things you're going to start noticing are going to start happening. Decision making is going to get easier. Things start to feel more connected, more organized. You're going to spend less time searching for things like your hex code and your favorite headshot. Y'all, the amount of time I've wasted trying to find what hex codes I need, that alone, just building this toolkit will save you so much time because you're not searching for that hex code every single time you're going to edit your Canva temp or your Canva design or your website or anything like that where you need that exact color code. You're going to spend less time second guessing because you're not building from scratch every time and you're not starting from scratch, so you're saving time. Your toolkit is what becomes a shortcut back to clarity when your doubt is starts creeping in. That's really the goal. Confidence delivering a clear brand to your audience. Now, if today's conversation was helpful, I don't want you to stop here. First, grab the branding Kickstarter guide. That's going to be on this QR code. So if you scan the QR code, you'll get access to download the branding Kickstarter guide. This is inside, there's two things. So you have the guide itself, which is going to bring you through the foundational brand aspects, but it also has a freebie inside, which this is free too. The branding Kickstarter guide is free. But inside is the extra freebie, which is the mission and vision mapping worksheet that can be very, very valuable if you're having trouble putting words or direction into your mission or vision. It also will walk you through your core values and how to establish those. Second, I want you to spend some time on that bulletin board on my online schoolhouse. These are blogs and resources that will help you continue building your toolkit and implementing it. And third, if you're ready to move from planning into implementation, you can join us for the July content recording workshop. That's where we'll create using I'm sorry, let me repeat that. That's where we're actually going to create and record that content, and then we're going to prep it to publish it. So today was about building the toolkit, and next month is about using it to consider what trendy content you want to be a part of. And that can be found on, if you would like to enroll for that, that is on the schoolhouse website as well. So collabwithangela.com/calendar. So let's go ahead and open things up. What is coming up for you? What feels easy, overwhelming? What questions do you have? I want to open the floor up for that. And then I also would just like to request your feedback. So if you scan this QR code, it will bring you to a Google form. Just put that you took the brand toolkit lunch and learn, and then you can leave me some feedback if you'd like to share any of your designs with me. Ask for any alignment feedback, if clarity feedback, anything like that, you can leave that in this feedback form. So what I want to do, I'm going to, let's see if I can figure out how to click the unmute. Okay, so I'm giving you access to unmute and start video if you guys have anything that you'd like to contribute. All right, if y'all don't have anything else, I will see you on the flip side. You know where to find me, and happy branding.